The rope tightened suddenly, jerking Alex against the ice wall. The scream that followed wasn't his, but it came from above him, where no one should have been. The weather was pristine as Alex adjusted his harness, his breath visible in the cold, crisp air. Around him, the towering face of Mount Eldara loomed, its shadow swallowing the valley below. The mountain had a reputation that preceded it, an uncharted peak shrouded in both mystery and death. Climbers spoke in hushed tones about its dangers, dubbing it the Mountain of Shadows. It wasn't on any official maps, and locals in the nearby village avoided even looking at it for too long. Alex, however, dismissed the stories. Legends and myths were common in the mountaineering world, and he had faced treacherous climbs before. This was just another challenge, or so he thought. Their team of 5, Alex, Ethan, Maya, Rachel, and their guide, Daniel, was among the best. Each of them had conquered peaks that made most climbers shudder. They were here for glory, for the thrill of being the first to summit Mount Eldara. As they began their ascent, laughter and camaraderie filled the air, their confidence high. But by the second day, that confidence began to waver. The temperature dropped suddenly, far below what the forecast had predicted. Frost clung to their gear in thick layers, and the wind carried a haunting, almost human-like wail. Ethan, the youngest of the group, was the first to voice his unease. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his eyes darting around nervously. "Hear what?" Maya replied, her tone dismissive. She was focused on her footing, her ice axe striking the frozen surface with precision. "It sounded like someone calling my name," Ethan muttered, his voice barely audible. "It's just the wind," Daniel interjected firmly. "Focus on the climb." That night, as they camped on a narrow ledge, Alex woke abruptly to the sound of crunching snow. His heart raced as he unzipped his tent just enough to peek outside. A figure stood several feet away, motionless, its silhouette barely visible against the snowstorm. "Daniel?" Alex whispered, his voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. It turned slowly and vanished into the swirling snow. In the morning, Ethan was gone. His tent was empty, his gear neatly packed and left in a pile, as if he'd calmly decided to leave. But there were no tracks leading away from the camp. Only the words, "Turn back," were scratched into the ice nearby, their edges jagged and uneven. The group stood in stunned silence around Ethan's abandoned gear. Rachel's hands trembled as she held up his ice axe, its blade still sharp and pristine. "This doesn't make sense," she whispered. "Where could he have gone? There's nothing out here." "Maybe he went ahead," Daniel suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. "We'll find him further up." Rachel shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "We should go back. This isn't normal." "We're halfway there," Daniel snapped, his tone sharp. "Turning back now would be more dangerous than pushing forward." Reluctantly, they packed up and continued the climb. But the mountain seemed to change. The air grew heavier, each breath a struggle. The wind howled louder, carrying with it faint whispers that sent chills down their spines. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Hours later, Maya began to lag behind. "Something's wrong," she muttered, her voice barely audible. "I keep seeing someone out of the corner of my eye." Alex glanced back, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" "There's someone following us," Maya said, her eyes wide with fear. "I saw them again just now. They were standing on the ridge watching." "There's no one there," Daniel said firmly. "You're just tired. Focus." The group pressed on, but the unease was palpable. When they reached a narrow ridge, disaster struck. Maya, who had been the most cautious climber among them, suddenly screamed. Alex turned just in time to see her slip, her body dangling precariously over the edge. He rushed to grab her rope, his hands freezing as he gripped it tightly. "Hold on!" he shouted. Maya's face contorted in terror. "Something's pulling me!" she cried, clawing at the ice. Before Alex could pull her up, her body jerked violently, as if an invisible force had yanked her downward. Her scream echoed as she disappeared into the abyss. Alex stared at the frayed end of her rope, his mind racing. Rachel's sobs broke the silence. "She's gone," she whispered. "Oh my God, she's gone." Daniel's face was pale, his jaw tight. "We keep moving. We're close to the summit." "Are you insane?" Rachel shouted. "We need to go back." "If we go back now, we die," Daniel snapped. "The only way is up." By the fourth day, Rachel was unraveling. She claimed to see Ethan and Maya walking ahead of them, their bodies whole and unscathed. "They're not gone," she whispered, her eyes darting around. "They're here. I can see them." Alex tried to reason with her, but she broke into a run, ignoring his shouts. She disappeared into the blinding snow, her laughter echoing eerily. Now it was just Alex and Daniel. The terrain grew steeper, the ice sharper. The symbols Alex had noticed earlier were more frequent now, their glowing lines pulsating with a sinister energy. The whispers had grown louder, forming words that echoed in his mind. "You don't belong here. Leave while you can." When they finally reached the summit, Alex felt no triumph. The summit was a barren expanse of ice, with a jagged, altar-like structure at its center. The air was unnaturally still, the silence oppressive. "Do you feel it?" Daniel asked, his voice barely audible. "Feel what?" Alex replied, his breath hitching. "The mountain," Daniel said, his eyes glassy. "It's alive. It's watching us." Before Alex could respond, Daniel stepped forward, placing his hand on the altar. A low rumble shook the ground, and the air filled with a deafening roar. Black tendrils erupted from the altar, wrapping around Daniel and pulling him into the ice. His screams echoed as he was swallowed whole. Alex was alone. The whispers turned into screams, voices overlapping in a chaotic chorus. The mountain shifted around him, the path he'd climbed now a labyrinth of jagged ice and shadow. He slipped and fell repeatedly, his hands bloodied and numb. At one point, he turned a corner and found himself face to face with Maya. Her eyes were hollow, her skin frostbitten and gray. "You can't leave," she whispered, her voice distorted. Alex stumbled backward, but more figures emerged from the snow. Ethan, Rachel, Daniel, all of them staring with vacant expressions. The mountain doesn't let anyone go, he realized. It keeps them. With a surge of adrenaline, Alex hurled himself down the slope, ignoring the biting cold and the screams that followed him. He reached the base of the mountain as dawn broke, collapsing in the snow. When he awoke, a rescue team surrounded him. "You're lucky to be alive," one of them said. But Alex knew he wasn't safe. In the distance, Mount El Dara loomed, its shadow stretching unnaturally long. He could still hear the whispers, faint but insistent. "You'll be back." Weeks later, Alex sits in his apartment trying to recover. One night, frost forms on his window pane despite the heater running. As he approaches, he sees a faint reflection Maya's hollow eyes staring back at him. The mountain had followed him home,